Hello, this is Philip Cargom. This is Tea with a Druid number, what is it? 161. Let me just do one adjustment here and move that along there. And there we go. That's just fantastic. One more there. Yes. So, hello, welcome, and I would like to thank you for being here. And this is brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And already I can see there are lots of people coming into the forest clearing from as far away as Utah, New York, Washington, California, the Netherlands, and Liverpool, Ulster, Vienna, and so on. Great to have you. Such a whirlwind of the times now, isn't it? But I'll tell you what I want to do this time. I want to read to you a little bit from a book, which is an anthology of essays that's just come out. It's called Sensing the Earth, Messages from the Wisdom Keepers, edited by Peter Knight and Sue Wallace. When life is in turmoil, and lots is happening around us, it can be really good to come back to the earth, to tune in to the energy from the earth and history too, the kind of sweep and perspective that history gives us. So this is a collection of essays. It's really beautiful. It's full of photographs and really some splendid illustrations, and from lots of different contributors. And when I was asking for guidance about what to talk about today, the book fell open at this page, and I just think this is really helpful. This is from an essay called The River to the Stars by Yuri Leach, who lives, I believe, in Glastonbury. He certainly writes about Glastonbury, and it says he's currently writing a biography about Catherine Maltwood, who came up with this wonderful idea of the Glastonbury Zodiac. Thoughts on COVID-19. Let me just check that you can hear me. If you weren't hearing me, somebody in the comments would be saying, we can't hear you. So I reckon you can hear me. But pull up a log by the fire in the forest clearing and listen to this. Right now, July 2020, the world is in various stages of lockdown because of the coronavirus. COVID-19 and the social media network Facebook, which I use most days, shows me all manner of different opinions, fears, and concerns about it all. These are uncertain times, and there is a lot of mistrust towards the world's governing establishments. There is much fear. The world feels like it is getting smaller. Personal freedom feels like it is a thing of the past. Even hard cash may be coming to an end. There are more and more people and less employment. Financial collapse may in turn hurt more people than the virus itself. Many people on Facebook do not even believe the virus to be real. Conspiracy theories are rife. Yet I have friends who have lost loved ones to COVID. The conspiracy theories are no comfort to them. Let us pause. A deep in-breath and a slow exhale. I put my hand into the cold stream. It is barely 2 inches deep. The gentle current flows through my fingers. My fingertips pick up a small, insignificant stone, and I hold it in my wet palm. And then I lean back against the pine tree again. Catherine Maltwood and Dion Fortune lived in London during the First World War. They witnessed the Zeppelin raids, the very first time in British history that innocent civilians were bombed indiscriminately. That must have been pretty frightening. Then came the Second World War, beyond comprehension in its monstrosity. But it too came to an end. What is COVID-19? Nobody's being bombed. It hasn't lasted for years, and it will pass. Many thousands have died, and it is not yet over. People survive. Fear-mongering serves no useful purpose at all. Being kind, considerate, helpful, compassionate. These are the skills of survival. Protection and damage limitation are the only intelligent things to contemplate. Whether the virus is natural or man-made makes no difference. Whether it is a conspiracy so that the whole world can be vaccinated, or whether all of the governments are as bewildered and as uncertain as the people, only human decency will get us all through this. I'm not ignorant of conspiracy theories, but first and foremost, I believe in human decency, and I am not fearful of the future. I believe that the majority of people love the world and love their friends and family, and everything will be okay. I flick my stone back into the water and it makes a satisfying plop. This little stream, the source of the river Brew, flows through the land. Once this land was the domain of the Iron Age Druids and the Celts, until their world was changed forever by the Roman invasion of Britain. Then, after many centuries, the Roman Empire itself collapsed, and during the Dark Ages, the Age of Arthur, the Romano-Britons of this land were pushed into the land that became known as Wales. This land then became Saxon England, the Kingdom of Wessex. In 1066, the Norman invasion changed the face of Saxon England forever. And yet the River Brew has just kept flowing through all those times, when the world, to many, appeared to be coming to an end. I spent many years exploring the Glastonbury zodiac with another very important friend of mine, Bali, who sadly died in 2011. Bali was a very unique and insightful person, a true seer. In August 2010, during a big astronomical event called the Grand Cardinal Cross, a number of us went to Park Wood, the center point of the Glastonbury zodiac, to be present, aware, and to meditate. I spoke to Bali afterwards. She had meditated upon what the Glastonbury zodiac landscape would look like 100 or so years from now. She had expected it to be very science fiction in its appearance, but she was really quite surprised that it was all lush and green, and that the advanced technology existed, but it was so small that it made no visible impact upon nature. Whatever one makes of Bali's simple vision, it gave us both optimism. I believe that human decency will define and be the substance of the future. Not fear, nor greed. These things will become outgrown, just as slavery became outgrown. Humanity evolves. One has to believe in that. I'm not really at the source of the River Brew. I was only there in my mind's eye. I am in lockdown with my partner and our little boy. One day, when he's a bit older, I will take him to the source of the River Brew, and together he and I will plop petals into its water. Well, thank you, Yuri, for that. And I'll post up the details of this book because it's really a very lovely book and worth looking at. And that got me interested in the River Brew. I've been to Glastonbury so many times, but I haven't really explored the River Brew and its history. Because last week, I talked about perspective being of such help to us, and I talked about it in visual terms, in the sense of making sure that we were able to home in on detail in our lives, but also to see the big picture. So in a way, I was using a spatial analogy, but the same thing can be applied using a temporal frame, and say how, when we're confronted with life, it's important to be flexible so that we can home in on the precise moment. We can look at the midfield, if you like, but we can also look at the perspective that history gives us and time gives us. And so I looked at this detail about the River Brew, and I'll drop it into my blog, just edited out of Wikipedia, good old Wikipedia. And those of you who know Glastonbury or who know of it by looking at images of it. If you Google images of the River Brew, Brue, you'll see some lovely photos there with images of it. The River Brew originates in the parish of Brewham in Somerset, England, and reaches the sea some 30 miles west at Burnham-on-Sea. It originally took a different route from Glastonbury to the sea, but this was changed by Glastonbury Abbey in the 12th century. The river provides an important drainage route for water from a low-lying area which is prone to flooding, which man has tried to manage through rhines, canals, artificial rivers, and sluices for centuries. The river originates in hills close to the border with Dorset. It descends quickly in a narrow valley to a point just beyond Bruton, where it is joined by the River Pitt. Here it takes a meandering route through a broad, flat-bottomed valley between Castle Carey and Alhampton. It passes Glastonbury, where it acts as a natural boundary with the nearby village of Street, before flowing in a largely artificial channel across the Somerset levels and into the River Parrett at Burnham-on-Sea. That's why when you look at some photos online, or if you've been to Glastonbury, you see that often you see the artificial section where it's been channeled and it's just like a long canal, but that's not all of the river. The area is known to have been occupied since the Neolithic, when people exploited the reed swamps for their natural resources and started to construct wooden trackways, such as the Sweet Track. The Sweet Track, named after the peat digger who discovered it in 1970, is the world's oldest timber trackway, built in the early 4th millennium BC. And here's a picture of the Sweet Track as it would have been. And there you see, this is from the Druid plant oracle. And there you see Glastonbury Tor in the distance. And you notice there isn't the church spire on it, of course, because this is in Neolithic times. And so humanity in ancient times built these trackways between areas and to connect the lake villages as well. Near the Brew is the best preserved prehistoric village in the UK, Glastonbury Lake Village, once inhabited by about 200 people living in 14 roundhouses and built on an artificial foundation of timber filled with brushwood, bracken, rubble and clay. If any of you have been to Lake Titicaca, you know how you go across Lake Titicaca in Peru, or from the other side, which is what is it on the other side? Is it Bolivia? No, it's not. I can't remember. But you go across. I went across from Peru, and you go across, and there are these floating islands with people living on them, little houses. It was just like this, except they weren't floating; they were actually anchored. And in the Romano-British period, the Brew formed a lake just south of the hilly ground on which Glastonbury stands. So there is the lake formed by the Brew, just south of the hilly ground on which Glastonbury stands. According to legend, this lake is one of the locations suggested by Arthurian legend as the home of the Lady of the Lake. Pompal's Bridge stood at the western end of this lake, guarding Glastonbury from the south. And it is suggested that it was here that Sir Bedivere threw Excalibur into the waters after King Arthur fell at the Battle of Camlan. And so let's go to this lake now in our imaginations. Let's have a reverie where, if you wish, you imagine that you're looking across the lake now, with Glastonbury there in the south. And the sunlight is slanting through the clouds. You see the reeds, you see the Sweet Track going from the Glastonbury Lake Village towards the Tor. And you walk along the Sweet Track a little bit and you can feel the springiness of the wooden planks as you walk along. And you feel so grateful to those of the tribe who built this track, which enables you to connect with friends, with people in different parts of the country and of this area. And you decide there's nobody around, and you decide to just sit down on this wooden track and dangle your feet in the water. You pull off your rough leather shoes and dip your feet into the cool water. And the sunlight is glancing on the water. And you even sense a fish just darting close to your foot, so it almost touches your feet. You close your eyes for a moment and just sense yourself in this landscape. But then you sense something extraordinary happening, and you feel drawn to opening your eyes. And you see a hand lifting a sword out of the lake. And a voice says to you, "Behold this sword, Excalibur, who rises from the lake of still meditation and returns to it again. The sword of spirit, of light and truth is always sharp and always with you, if your lake be stilled." And the sword just slowly sinks back into the lake, and you feel blessed, inspired and blessed. In our Druid ceremonies, these are the words of a ceremony, and you hear them now as you sit on the sweet track, gazing across at the Tor and across the water. Arthur, after his battles for unity, went to the land of the Sidhe. He comes again when there is need. He sleeps and does not die. He is dark to us when the light of this mortal world blinds us. The sword of spirit, of light and truth, is always sharp and always with us, if our lake be stilled. And so gradually allow this scene to fade. Gradually let it fade as you become aware of being seated in front of your computer, your screen, here today, wherever you are in the world. And if you feel like it, just type in a few words of how that made you feel. Blessings and love and an elbow bump. That's lovely. Lots of elbow bumps to you too. It's a perfect image, really, of yin and yang, isn't it? This symbol of the will, of direction, of specificity, and then it drops into the other dimension, which is the perfect symbol for yin, of water, verticality and horizontality, if one can say that. Stefan, I don't know how you pronounce it, Stefan Makaba, just wanted to stay there. May the blade of light and truth guide us through these times. Yes, exactly. And I think we need both these qualities, if you like. The quality of clarity, of will, of direction, of having a sense of purpose and direction, even if it's that in the very simple sense of having the specific projects that we want to work on, of having specific goals we want to achieve, even if for some of us that may be getting through the day. But whatever it is, we need direction and we need purpose. And that's why I always think spiritual purpose is, why not go for gold? Why not go for the highest purposes? But we can't just be driven by that, because then we become driven and we get burnout and it's tiring and it's unbalanced. So we need the balance of the water, of the lake. Petra she saw a knight kneeling on the shore. That's lovely, Petra. Thank you. And Angela, Excalibur slicing through the stories and lies to the clearing you talk of when meditating. Yeah. So let me thank you. Yes, lovely. Oh, so good to be with you in this time. It made me think when I came up with this idea, it made me think, of course, of our meditations, where the Pendragon of the Order says that. Those of you who've been to Glastonbury will know that wonderful moment where Dave the Bard takes out the Order's sword and says those wonderful words, behold this sword which rose from the lake of still meditation and was returned to it again. It's always a wonderful moment in the gatherings at Glastonbury. And I wonder if we can take this opportunity to do a little bit of research. These teas with the Druids, because they reach so many people. I mean, there are 411 people here at this precise moment. And then what will happen is, over time, that number will go up to the thousands, as people watch the recordings and so on. So it reaches a good number of people. So it does give us the opportunity to do a bit of research. And I wonder if you could help me in a bit of research. I've been working for some time on a book on sleep, related to the sleep clinic that I've been running for a number of years. And I hope to be able to finish it by March, but maybe a bit later than that, April. So. But I'm gathering together things you can do in bed if you can't get to sleep. And I'm discovering all sorts of sort of fun stuff that from physical exercises to all sorts of things. And I came across this the other day, which I'll read out to you. Charles Tart, a psychologist specializing in special states of consciousness, suggests this method for generating and remembering mental images, and of course working with images that arise from the unconscious. Jung's wonderful idea of the active imagination. So you dip down, which is something that many of you probably do in meditation. And of course, when we go into sleep, there's that sort of often delicious moment when you're lying in bed having rational thoughts, and then an elephant walks past the bus that's going past you, and you realize, oh, I must be going to sleep because that's nutty. So, and then of course you go to sleep and you forget it. And so Charles Tart has come up with a great way of remembering these images, and if you want to then work on them, which is where you lie down on your back and you raise your arm up, and the way I used to do this a lot when I was a kid, and I thought it was a really weird thing to do. But I was talking with somebody the other day, and a couple of people, and they both said they used to do it as well. So tell me if you used to do this, or if you still do this, which is when you're lying in bed, you hold your arm up, so you get the point of gravity, where your arm isn't going to flop down because it reaches the actual perfect point of balance. And there's something strangely satisfying in it. And you can use it as a focus for meditation. You can do your own little bit of being a fakir, lying. You don't have to have the bed of nails. You can just do this bit of the fakir job. And you can use it as a point of meditation. And that's the only way I've used it. But Charles Tart suggests that you do that. And then you maintain it until you start to drop off to sleep. As you start to drift into that imagery, you start to, and your arm will naturally fall and it'll wake you up. And so then you can jot down the imagery or work with it in the way you want to. So if you're up for a little psycho-spiritual experiment, what would be lovely is if you try doing that, say this evening, or when you go to bed one evening, put your arm up, find the point where I can't think of the word for it at the moment. The point of balance of whatever it's called, I've forgotten. And see if some imagery comes up. Jamie Hume says, yes, I've done that. It's very relaxing. Reminds me of rock balancing. Yes, exactly. Lynn says, I like to feel the balance. Somebody else, I remember doing that loads when I was a kid. James Binning. Yes, I did that as a child. I did that, said Claire. We've discovered. Chloe says, I did that too. Says, yes, Claire, I did a lot in the past. Tina says that. Alice Sock says, yep. How great. Well, there we go. Isn't it fun when you discover that something you thought was kind of weird and maybe you were the only person didn't. Yes. Thank you, Peter, for that. Okay, so let's do that. Try it out, and then just how can we do this? Do it as a comment on this post. So because this goes up on Facebook and YouTube. So wherever you saw it, after you've done it, a few times or something, do a little report on it. Yeah, great, fantastic. Cynthia says, I used to do that with my son when he was little. He loved balancing his arm and letting it fall. Great. Okay, so we've got our experiment for the evening. I'll give it a go for you, pal, says Donach. Right. Great. Okay. Lots of love to you. Have a wonderful week. Let's hope that all is peaceful over the next few days in the United States. Let's hope the whole world is peaceful. And many blessings. And I'm going to make a cup of tea, and I'm going to come back and read your. There's so many comments. So Jackie says, I was watching my granddaughter do it the other day. Fantastic. Okay, lots of love, and see you next week. Bye.